Hello and welcome to this episode of the English Contractions series. So today we're looking at the contraction she'd, which can be a shortening of she would, but it can also be a shortening of she had. So we'll focus in on the pronunciation, but we are also going to think about how you can decide whether it's a shortening of would or had. So we're going to have 2 slides of example sentences, and as well as thinking about our contraction, we will consider when they pop up any additional connected speech features. So thinking about this contracted form then, when it represents she would. So first of all, we'll think about pronunciation. So as you can see here, we've got she, and then would with that would. However, when we contract to form she'd, we lose the w and the and we're left with she and then that little d at the end. She'd. And you'll notice with the top row, when we had the full form of the script there, she would, that's the equivalent to 2 syllables. But when we contract, we're squashing it down into one. She'd. So you want that to glide, flow smoothly. So thinking about some example sentences with she'd then. Remember, we're really trying to focus on the pronunciation here with the 1 syllable, she'd. So repeat after me, nice and loud. She'd love that book. Again. She'd love that book. Another example then. She'd probably help if you asked her. Now, maybe you noticed that with the flow of that sentence, we've got a little bit of extra stuff going on that we can think about. So help ends in that consonant sound, the p, and then we've got a vowel immediately afterwards, and therefore we can sort of allow it to glide or smoothly move across. Help if. She'd probably help if you asked her. And we have also got something else potentially going on, depending on how quickly you're speaking. Because we've got the word you ending in this oo, and then we've got a vowel immediately afterwards, we can have this tiny intrusive or linking W that pops up. You asked her with a oo. You asked her, or you asked her. Both fine, but there can be this subtle w that pops in just because of the mouth shape that we're making. If that's something that you are finding difficult to hear or to replicate, don't worry. Honestly, it's not a big thing, but it's just worth mentioning. So I'm going to read this sentence one more time and see if you can match the pace and the flow of what you're hearing. So repeat after me nice and loud. She'd probably help if you asked her. Good. So we are going to have another slide of examples in a moment, but just as a reminder, this playlist will become quite large. So if you haven't already, it might be worth subscribing so that you don't miss out on upcoming videos. So thinking about the form of she'd, which comes from she had then. So we've got the 2 syllables at the top, she, and had with the h-a. But if we want to form this contraction, we need to lose the h and the a. So we're left again with she'd. And this is the same pronunciation as the contracted form of she would. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, if I hear somebody say she'd, how do I know if it's a contraction of she had or she would? And if you're asking that question, I think that's a really valid question. So let's try and work this out together. And we'll do that by having some further examples. So remember, we're focusing on this contracted she'd for our pronunciation, but we'll also think about the grammar in a moment. So first of all then, repeat after me. She'd been there before. She'd already left. And we could have here a little bit of a link with the d. She'd already left. Good. So thinking about grammar then, if I said to you, she would been there before, does that feel natural to your ears? Similarly, if I said, she would already left, how does that sound when you hear me say that? Hopefully, your intuition is telling you it sounds a bit weird, it sounds unnatural, because it is. We wouldn't say that in English because it doesn't hold any meaning. So we can see with both of these sentences that if I change it for the word would, we lose meaning. The sentence no longer really means anything. So you can use your intuition. So if you hear somebody say she'd, you can kind of mentally in your head say the sentence out loud with she had and she would, and just let your intuition guide you as to which sounds more natural. So there is another tip as well. Noticing here, we've got our verbs been and left. Had been, had left. We know that we're dealing with a past perfect. But in the other examples, when we'd got she'd with the meaning of she would, our verbs were actually in the bare infinitive. So that's another little tip as well. Think about what the other verbs in the sentence are doing to give you a clue. Anyway, our focus today really is more on the pronunciation. So your takeaway is that it needs to be one syllable, she'd. So if you found that useful, go ahead and click like, and don't forget to leave me a comment below if you've got any questions or if you want to test out any example sentences. Thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day.